Please, if there are shortfalls, bear with us. We will make up a united, prosperous Nigeria. It's within our reach. Thank you. God bless you.
Just a few days ago, Nigerian President Bola Tinubu attended the 60th anniversary of the Nigerian Defense Academy. Nigerian soldiers and the Nigerian military's top brass were present. Everyone expected that Bola Tinubu would talk about matters that were relevant. However, he chose to beg the military boys. Well, he knows what he has done is not forgivable, and perhaps the Nigerian military is preparing for a coup against him. Therefore, in a humble tone, Bola requested that the Nigerian military bear with him and forgive him for his wrongdoings. But is the Nigerian military indeed preparing for a coup in Nigeria? What are the plans? And what is going to happen shortly in Nigeria? Let's find out. Since the coup in Niger, Nigerian President Bola Tinubu has been in the spotlight. Besides being the Nigerian president, he is also the chair of ECOWAS. That's why we saw ECOWAS choosing a hawkish stance about the coup in Niger and threatening to invade Niger if the coup is not reserved. We saw Bola playing like a West puppet, doing whatever France and the EU told him. He was becoming the reason for ECOWAS losing its value and credibility. However, during all this, no one actually paid attention to what Nigeria's military wanted. There was little information available about whether the military and the president were on the same page about matters like Niger's invasion. But now, things have started to clear up as Bola's narrative of bringing democracy to Africa by invading Niger did not sell. And now this has allowed everyone to see the internal crises in Nigeria. It's turning out that the reason why Bola was so keenly participating in Niger's coup matter was to distract the public from what was going wrong in Nigeria. But what crises are worsening in Nigeria that anger the military? Well, the list of matters where Bola Tinubu and the military had differences of opinion is quite long. Earlier, this was not relevant. But now, as Bola is more scared than ever about a coup, we have to talk about what went wrong. So what did the Nigerian military want over Nigeria's role in ECOWAS over Niger's coup? Well, the Nigerian military never wanted President Bola Tinubu to have an aggressive policy about Niger's military junta. Instead of being a prudent chair of ECOWAS and thinking of resolving the matter peacefully, Bola decided to go offensive and push for the invasion of Niger. He went to extremes and wrote to the country's Senate, urging members to support a regional military intervention in neighboring Niger. Tinubu called for military buildup and deployment of personnel for military intervention to enforce compliance of the military junta in Niger should they remain resistant. Interestingly, the Nigerian military saw intervention and invasion of the neighboring country as something to be avoided. However, they were not vocal about that, letting Bola make mistakes. Nobody knew that the military had started thinking that Bola was not the man they would be backing for longer. What's more, Bola exacerbated the situation by imposing sanctions on Niger and giving the coup leaders a week to reinstate Bazoum or face potential armed intervention. The sanctions imposed by the 15-member ECOWAS included border closures and suspension of all financial and commercial ties with Niger. Additionally, the Central Bank of West African States canceled a planned 30 billion CFA franc bond issuance by Niger. Tinubu, despite not having appointed ministers for defense and foreign affairs, was keen to assert Nigeria's influence in a region known as the Coup Belt. With the largest armed forces in the region and having contributed the most troops to other regional peacekeeping missions, Nigeria was positioned to lead any intervention force in Niger. Yet the Nigerian military was never asked about their plan. Despite the threats of military action, there was significant opposition to military intervention in the Nigerian Senate, especially among lawmakers representing states along the border with Niger. ECOWAS had set a deadline for the junta to relinquish power, but did not immediately deploy troops in response to the defiance, preferring a diplomatic resolution to the crisis. Some raised concerns about the feasibility of the 7-day deadline, given the requirement for parliamentary approval before deploying the military. Additionally, there was apprehension about electricity cuts to Niger, impacting its capital, Niamey, and other cities, which critics viewed as a violation of a treaty. All eyes had been on Mr. Tinubu, who had been the most outspoken in condemning West Africa coups and declared that ECOWAS could not be made up of toothless bulldogs. Nigeria's constitution specified that the president could not deploy troops without the approval of the National Assembly, consisting of both the upper and lower chambers of parliament. It's speculated, what if the president had the power? Perhaps Bola would have sent Nigerian troops to Niger. However, that would not have been so easy, as the Nigerian military would have conveyed its dissatisfaction with the decision. Now, even if there is no open dispute between Bola and the Nigerian military, people know they exist. It's estimated that President Tinubu's firm stance against coups might have been influenced by his own experiences. He had served as a lawmaker for barely a year in the early 1990s before elections were nullified, parliament was dissolved, and Sani Abacha seized power. He had joined the pro-democracy movement, advocating for a return to civilian rule, putting him in the sights of the military, which forced him into exile. He had returned in 1998 following the death of Abacha, one of Nigeria's most ruthless and corrupt military rulers. But all this has made Bola's leaning clear. The Nigerian military knows that he is against them and has been against them since the start of his politics. They know that whenever he gets the time to ignore the military and bypass it, he will. Therefore, an implicit understanding exists that Bola should not be trusted, even though superficially, the military and Bola seem to work well together. You should know that unlike his predecessor, Muhammadu Buhari, President Tinubu did not have a military background, nor did his national security advisor, Nuhu Ribadu, who had served as a former policeman. Therefore, he might be under the impression that he does not need to bring the military on the same page. He believes he is in power and has the authority to order the military in whatever way he likes. Even though that's how things should be, the military in Nigeria is strong and not irrelevant. As for the decision to invade Niger, critics had argued that Mr. Tinubu had a history of rushing into major decisions, pointing to his inaugural speech as president in May, where he announced the discontinuation of a decades-long fuel subsidy, leading to chaos. But what about the humanitarian crises in Nigeria that are proving Bola Tinubu's failure? Well, Bola keenly took an interest in coups in Africa, believing that if he became the West puppet, he might win their favor. That would be to gain political power to ensure he gets strong roots in Nigeria's politics. However, because he crossed all limits in being a West puppet, things have turned upside down for him. People are no longer paying attention to Niger, but asking Bola to answer about crises in Nigeria, the country he was entrusted to run. In 2024, the crises in northeast Nigeria persist, leaving approximately 8.3 million people in dire need of humanitarian aid, with over 80% being women and children. The region continues to grapple with severe food insecurity, with forecasts indicating that by mid-2024, around 4.4 million individuals will be facing hunger. This acute food crisis exacerbated the challenges faced by Nigerians already affected by conflicts. However, Bola is more interested in interfering in Niger and other coup-hit countries. Despite the northwest and northeast regions being responsible for 80% of Nigeria's grain production, violence in these areas disrupted supplies. The country's Statistics Bureau revealed that at least 63% of its 220 million citizens lived in extreme poverty, making items like meat, eggs, and potatoes unaffordable luxuries. Faced with skyrocketing food prices, desperate Nigerians took to the streets in protest, with some resorting to unconventional measures like digging up anthills in search of stored grain. Since taking office the previous year, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu had implemented policies such as ending fuel subsidies and currency controls, leading to a threefold increase in petrol prices and a surge in living expenses as the naira depreciated against the dollar. Nigeria's inflation rate soared to a three-decade high of over 28% in December, sparking protests in various northern cities, including Suleja, Minna, and Kano. The traditional emir of Kano, Aminu Ado Bayero, issued a warning about the economic hardships facing Nigerians and urged the president to take urgent action. Governor Abba Kabir Yusuf also highlighted the dire hunger situation, particularly in Kano State. With a significant portion of the population living in extreme poverty, many Nigerians had to forego basic items like meat, eggs, and milk. In Kano, residents turned to inexpensive rice, known as afafata rice. The World Bank warned of acute food shortages in 7 states due to ongoing violence, worsened by the closure of the northern border with Niger following a military coup. Yet Bola is in no mood to resolve the security problem that would ultimately resolve other crises. This has made the Nigerian military deeply unsatisfied. They wonder why Bola is interested in sending them to Niger when Nigeria itself is grappling with security challenges. Luckily, in his address to the military, Bola realized that he should think about Nigerians. After begging the military not to remove him, he said he was asking them to ensure security in Nigeria.
The government is fully aware of the services and sacrifices that members of the Nigerian Armed Forces have continued to render across the length and breadth of this country, especially in face of daunting challenges. We as a government will continue to accord priority to the needs of armed forces to enable the military to play its constitutional role without let or hindrance. Let me reiterate the urgency to upscale the fight against insecurity, which has robbed us of peace and progress.
This was said to win the military's favor and lessen the tensions between him and the troops. However, the concrete crises are still to be resolved. So what kind of food crises Nigeria is grappling with? Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. Statistics reveal a concerning picture as the Poultry Association of Nigeria recently expressed deep worries about closing over 50% of poultry farms in 2023. This translates to 1 in every 2 poultry farms in Nigeria shutting down, representing half of all poultry farms and highlighting the severe challenges faced by the sector. The unfortunate reality is that this alarming development has significant repercussions on both the economy and public health. The Nigerian poultry industry, crucial for the country's economy, contributing to job creation and food security, faces a shadow cast by closures leading to revenue losses, mass unemployment, and ripple effects on ancillary sectors. And Bola did nothing to protect the industry. The president of the Poultry Association of Nigeria disclosed that the poultry industry struggles to meet soaring demand, resulting in a drastic increase in egg prices. The economic impact extends beyond farms, affecting consumers bearing the brunt of inflated prices. Experts identify a key factor contributing to this crisis as the surge in production costs, primarily driven by the astronomical rise in maize prices, a crucial ingredient in poultry feed. The price of maize skyrocketed by 79.23% year-on-year, intensifying challenges for poultry farmers facing increased operational costs. Moreover, the ripple effect extends to the broader economy, impacting businesses reliant on poultry products and possibly leading to job losses within the sector. The strain on the economy could exacerbate existing challenges, making it imperative to address the root causes of this crisis. Beyond the economic domain, the health implications of this poultry crisis cannot be ignored. The shortage of poultry products, especially eggs, threatens consumers' nutritional balance, raising concerns about potential nutritional gaps in the diet of many Nigerians. Poultry producers in Nigeria grapple with challenges threatening the viability of their operations, including soaring production costs driven by reliance on expensive feed ingredients, insecurity, and high energy expenses. Insecurity, pervasive across the middle region, the nation's food basket, with the burning of whole villages, bandits taxing farmers, and widespread kidnapping for ransom, is a significant problem. Additionally, outbreaks of diseases like avian influenza and Newcastle disease pose risks aggravated by inadequate biosecurity measures. The industry is hindered by deficient infrastructure, low levels of technology adoption, and insufficient government support. But during the time, Bola would have been attending meetings to bring the situation under control. He was more interested in talking about how Niger should be invaded, and France, his master, should be pleased. But what's that one thing making the Nigerian military want to replace Bola Tinubu? Well, it's the security and threats, while Bola is not doing anything. Nigeria is facing numerous security challenges across its territory, with increasing insecurity observed in the country's northern and southern regions. The long-standing Islamist insurgency and ongoing militia activities, often referred to as banditry, continue to impact the northern areas. At the same time, the Biafra separatist movement remains a source of unrest in the south. ACLED documented a 22% rise in organized political violence events in Nigeria in 2021, resulting in over 9,900 reported fatalities, representing nearly a 30% increase compared to 2020. The threat posed by Islamist militants in the northeast persisted in 2021, despite ongoing military efforts against the insurgency. The Islamic State West Africa Lake Chad faction gained more strength, posing a challenge to counterinsurgency efforts. Although there was an overall decrease in the number of events involving Islamist militants in 2021, there was a significant surge in militant activity, and violence continued. Clashes intensified between Boko Haram and its splinter faction, ISWAP Lake Chad, in a struggle for dominance and territorial control in northeast Nigeria and around Lake Chad. The death of JAS faction leader Abubakar Shekau in May prompted some fighters to pledge allegiance to ISWAP, and thousands surrendered to military forces. ISWAP consolidated its influence despite resistance from remaining JAS faction fighters. In 2021, the Boko Haram insurgency extended beyond its traditional stronghold in the northeast, with reports of ISWAP and JAS militants seizing control of communities in Niger State. Militants established camps in the state, expanding their operations closer to the federal capital territory. The expansion of militant activities into previously unaffected territories is a worrying trend. In Nigeria's north-central and northwest regions, communal militia activity, often described as banditry, accounted for nearly one-third of all organized political violence events recorded by ACOLED in 2021. These militias, operating from ungoverned forests, engaged in activities such as cattle rustling, kidnapping for ransom, and pillaging of villages. ACOLED data shows that these militias killed over 2,600 civilians in 2021, surpassing the number of civilian fatalities resulting from the Boko Haram and ISWAP insurgencies. Abductions and forced disappearances by these groups tripled compared to 2020, as militias increasingly relied on kidnapping for ransom as a source of income. In the absence of effective governance, militias took control of territories, imposing taxes, curfews, and restricting people's movement. Now, Nigeria faces persistent security challenges due to distrust of the government among marginalized communities, according to a recent working paper from the International Monetary Fund. Entitled Fraying Threads: Exclusion and Conflict in Sub-Saharan Africa, the paper was written by Hani Abdel Latif and Mahmoud El Gamal. It shines a light on areas like Kaduna, Borno, Niger, Zamfara, and Katsina, which are heavily impacted by ongoing conflicts and humanitarian crises. The document identifies the systematic denial of rights, opportunities, and resources to certain individuals or groups as a major driver of conflict and underdevelopment in Nigeria and other parts of sub-Saharan Africa. This unequal access to necessities, such as clean water, food, healthcare, education, and economic opportunities, exacerbates feelings of exclusion among marginalized populations, leading to social unrest that hampers national progress. Moreover, the sense of exclusion provides fertile ground for armed groups to exploit the grievances of marginalized people, escalating violence. The report also highlights that conflicts often intensify near national borders, where public services are lacking, further amplifying feelings of exclusion. These regions are often referred to as ungoverned areas. In 2022 alone, Borno saw nearly 3,000 fatalities due to conflict fueled by exclusion, with Zamfara, Niger, Kaduna, and Katsina also experiencing significant casualties. The paper highlights the importance of enhancing people's trust in the government and ensuring fair access to services as crucial steps toward promoting peace and social cohesion in Nigeria and the wider sub-Saharan Africa region. But isn't all this triggering an economic crisis? Well, the answer is yes. Recently, the IMF announced that Nigeria is grappling with a deepening economic crisis. The International Monetary Fund highlighted that stagnant per capita growth, widespread poverty, and severe food insecurity have exacerbated the ongoing affordability challenges in Nigeria. This assessment coincides with escalating inflation, currency exchange difficulties, sluggish economic expansion, and business closures. The IMF conveyed these findings in a new report titled IMF Executive Board Concludes Post-Financing Assessment with Nigeria. The report underscores that inadequate revenue collection has impeded service provision and public investment. It highlighted that headline inflation surged to 27% year-on-year in October, with food inflation reaching 32%, driven by factors such as the removal of fuel subsidies, currency depreciation, and poor agricultural output. The report said that Nigeria is faced with a challenging external environment and numerous domestic issues. External financing, whether from markets or official sources, is scarce, and global food prices have risen due to conflicts and economic fragmentation. All these crises are making the Nigerian military's road to a coup smoother. It's under these conditions that the military is left with no choice but to bring a coup to bring the country back on track. So is it true that the Nigerian military received requests about removing Bola Tinubu? Well, the Nigeria Defense Headquarters has confirmed that it received requests from undisclosed individuals to overthrow President Bola Tinubu's administration amid the ongoing political turmoil in Niger Republic, where the military recently ousted the democratically elected president, Mohamed Bazoum. According to the DHQ, those advocating for the coup are citing alleged poor welfare conditions within the armed forces as their justification. Brigadier General Tukur Gusau, the Director of Defense Information, affirmed this in a statement. However, the military expressed disapproval of calls for military intervention in the nation's democracy, branding such actions as unpatriotic and wicked, and an attempt to divert the focus of the armed forces from their constitutional duties. But this does not mean that it's not an option. That's the reason why Bola has felt the military's pulse and instantly begged them not to replace him. What do you think? Will there be a coup in Nigeria overthrowing Bola Tinubu? If a coup does materialize, what do you think would be the reasons behind it? In the comments section right below, share your thoughts on how it will look if Bola Tinubu, the man threatening Niger's military, is himself replaced. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.